Hi everyone, welcome to this little taster video. We wanted to just quickly hop into the game and show you kind of what you can expect coming with Update 7. We know that we've spoken a lot about Update 7, about the animation update and sort of what it'll do for the game and for your gameplay experience. So just want to kick off. We could spend an hour going through this. We're going to try and keep it as quick as possible and just show you some of the highlights. First up, we're here in Foy, the new lighting condition. This is German offensive. And you can see in front of you that Spono is holding the new MP40. It's been retextured to be both more optimized and to hold up much better closer to camera, and also let us do different stuff like having dynamic blood, mud, snow, water, all that sort of stuff on the weapon. We haven't applied that yet, but we're in a good place to be able to do that now, and obviously just show the weapon off as best as possible. What you're also seeing on screen is the new photoreal hands. They're based on photo scans. You'll see lots of nice little paw detail. Again, they're treated slightly different. The more higher up the uniform you've unlocked, the dirtier the hands. And the hands have different treatments. And then obviously every single uniform now has the uniform type depicted on screen. So you can see here, Spono's playing as the German commander. He's wearing the rubberized motorcycle coat, and you can see his sleeves there. And you'll find with the winter uniforms, you're wearing the gloves. With the smocks, you've got the smock sleeves, and the same goes for all of the US forces as well. So now, first of all, onto the FPP animation update. As you can see here, we now have a whole bunch of different idle animations that sort of play while you're walking around and while you're kind of idle. And those are immediately cancelled, obviously, as you go to start shooting or doing anything critical within the game. You'll also notice that there's some ambient camera movement now. So when you perform your idle actions, your walks, your reloads, the camera's moving as you gesture with the weapon um, to give it much more sort of weight and feeling. What you can now see here is that all of our walk animations, the entire way our system is designed now is to blend every animation together seamlessly at the same time. Instead of we're running and now we're stopped and now we're sprinting and now we're aiming, it's now we're running blends into walking, blends into sprinting. They all overlap and they all seamlessly integrate together. What you're seeing here as well is the pull up to ADS has a slight and subtle animation on it to indicate the soldier shouldering the weapon and tucking it in, and it gives a sense of punch and weight. What you're also seeing here is you're seeing ambient stance shifts animated between each stance to give you a sense of sort of what your character's doing on screen. And previously, you guys will have known that it's quite jank. It was very sort of blocky. You would crouch, and then the weapon would just change position on screen. Now everything is animated, and if Spono leans for us, you'll see that there's also leaning animations as well, just as the character subtly readjusts his weight. This doesn't inhibit your ability to fire, but it just adds something extra and weighty to the whole feeling of it. And now, what we'll do is we'll walk down into the center of town, and we can show you some more stuff and show you how this kind of all fits together. So as you can see, Foy Town has been remodeled. Now what you've got here is Spono sprinting. Now the walk and the sprints, and what you'll see in a moment is the recoil animations too, are all varied and procedural. It isn't one animation looping over and over again. It's several animations all blending together. And what you've just seen here is the brand new mantle and the vault animation. These have been massively reworked from the ground up. It is now omnidirectional. You don't have to walk up to something and then press the button and then it does it, and then it pushes you over the wall from one angle. It works from very many angles, and as you can see here, it's completely smooth and completely fluid. There is no stop-start nature to it anymore. It takes into account your momentum as you approach the wall. So if you approach the wall and you get good at it and time it correctly, you can clear the wall really quickly. If you walk up to it and you're standing next to it, you will then have to you will then travel less far as you reach the other side of the wall. So what I'm trying to say here is it takes into account character momentum as you approach it. It takes into account your angle, and it projects you across the wall with realistic body momentum. The idea here is that you're not starting in the middle of combat anymore. You're not doing this sort of very clunky action to get over the wall. This is now super smooth, and walls are no longer this sort of ridiculously inhibiting factor. However, we should say that we are not, we've decided to make sure that you cannot vault over significantly high walls. While we wanted to give you the sense of urgency as a soldier, quickly jumping across walls and obstacles in front of them, we didn't want to enable your soldier to just scale walls far higher than them. And the reason for that is basically because it tends to ruin gameplay. It means that you can't really ever defend a location because you'll be worried about Spider-Man climbing over all the walls around you. So tall walls, you can't vault or climb. But short walls, when it comes to hopping out of trenches, when it comes to leaping across fences, you can now do that at a full sprint without mitigating any of your speed, just as you would in real life if you were under fire and quickly trying to dart to new cover. So what we'll do here is if you wander into the center of town, Spono, oh, and you're also seeing here some of our new urban assets that we're going to be rolling out across all the maps. These are kind of interesting spaces for you to have much more interesting sort of interior battles, CQB, and the layout of the buildings are much more interesting. What you'll see here is if Spono just looks at the church, at the chapel in Foy, if he aims down the center of it and then starts to fire, what you'll see is that our recoil patterns now are completely procedural. The gun bounces back based on a lot of footage that our animation team have watched of the way that the weapons perform when handled by someone relatively experienced. So in ADS, you'll see here, just let's let the whole mag go. You'll watch the gun bounce back, and it's all procedural. It's not a binary recoil animation playing over and over again. It'll bounce from left to right. It'll follow on that course. And every weapon has been set up essentially to do this. And if Spono fires from the hip, you'll see that the way that the weapon recoils back, and it's cumulative, and it starts to build upon itself. And the character starts to move to try and keep it under control. What you can see here is our new animation, new reloading animation alongside some of the camera shake. And the observant amongst you will know as well that this is our full firearms overhaul. All the weapons now have been overhauled. We are now in the process of, and we've done this already for many maps, applying different sound biomes to the maps. If you're in a forest, the reflection is going to sound differently to if you are in an urban area, and it's also going to sound different to if you're in open fields. What we haven't done yet, but that we will be doing shortly, is we'll be doing interiors. We'll be doing a difference between factories, between interiors. If you go outside Spono and just go up to one of the other new tall buildings, that'd be great. Thanks. We're going to have a difference later of interior sounds. Whether you're in a house, whether you're in a warehouse, tunnels, when we get more into the industrial side of things as well. So what you'll start to notice is just a lift in quality. A lot of the weapons now sound far more weighty, far more punchy, and kind of where we would expect them to be. And so coming upstairs, we'll just show you some of these new interior assets, these new locations, these new buildings for you to occupy. And these buildings are designed specifically with obviously the gameplay in mind, and to create far more interesting internal experiences where there are holes in the walls for you to walk through. They're lit, they are dressed from the interior. They're great sniper nests, they're great MG nests. They're great firing positions. You can occupy them with your unit, and they're great places to fortify and defend and fight through as well. So now we will look at showing you some of the other things that we've done here. Obviously, we haven't touched on the TPP yet. We haven't touched on many of the other aspects of it, but the key things to see here is the vaulting and the climbing, all of the procedural walks, the recoils, the idles. We now have ambient sway depending on the direction of travel of your body, as well as if Spono stops and just goes still. Yeah, there you go. You can see as your character moves, your weapon and your hands will react. If he walks forward and back, it'll do something similar to indicate the character obviously backing up. And then as you bring the weapon up to ADS and then you turn your mouse, you'll see the weapon sway gently from side to side. What we've really tried to do here is keep the solidity and the reliability of the current Hell Let Loose shooting experience, but basically give you a much more beautiful and weighty and satisfying impression. So yeah, Spono, John, just let off a couple of rounds as you move through the environment. We can show everyone sort of the differences here. And then we can go for go into crouch or go into prone. And then if we just swap quickly to our pistol and stand back up, you can hear some of the new pistol stuff. So something we need to go into this in far more detail, but a lot of our sound now has been completely reworked for all the firearms, as we've said. It now matches the caliber. It's far easier to pick what exactly is shooting near you. We've also done some cool stuff with regard to the machine guns that we'll show you in a moment, and then also the sniper rifles too. So just give us one moment and we'll swap to those now. So Spono's swapped over to the machine gunner role. This is something that we've worked very hard on. Obviously, listening to community feedback, we felt that overhauling the animations wouldn't mean much if it felt like some of the key issues, namely vaulting, mantling, also remained in it as well. So what we've got here is a machine gunner. We've made some really big improvements to the machine gunner role. We've unlocked a lot of the functionality of it. It doesn't feel like you're being blocked from firing now. We've changed it so that hitting F now is dominant, so it'll grab surfaces around you really quickly and snap you onto them, get you set up, and you're able to fire pretty much instantly the second that the weapon is deployed. So if Spono goes up and deploys it again and moves his mouse as he's deploying the weapon, you'll see that it doesn't sort of break it. It's all fluid. So you grab it, it happens exactly as you'd want it to and as you'd expect it to. It's incredibly flexible, but super reliable, which we're really enjoying playing with. You can see here as well that everything's procedural again. We've got the cam shakes on it. As you deploy the weapon, you've got the momentum on the weapon. You also notice the sharp-eyed amongst you that Spono's bipod is on the surface, but the weapon moves independently to the bipod. So that's not the case on the M1919 due to the bipod being fixed, but on the MG42, the bipod moves, as you would expect, independently to the weapon itself, and you can see there. What you can also see is that the momentum sway affects it in the hip deploy, which is what we've got here, and that all the procedural recoil really comes to the fore here. So what I'll do is I'll get Spono to put some fire on that distant tree line where the fire's burning from the hip, and then swap to the FPP and then pop another couple rounds on it. So maybe just yeah, there you go. Dump this out for us. Fantastic. Wonderful. And give us a reload. And as you can see here, bipod still behaves independently, just happily reloading it. Everything is working together now. And now we'll go bring it up to ADS and let's just keep unleashing some rounds on it. what we've got, you can see here, is a procedural recoil. Again, our animators spent a lot of time looking at a lot of reference for how they actually perform when ADS downsides. And we've tweaked and changed every single weapon to basically behave in the way that you would expect from them to. What you'll also notice is that the sounds, again, as we said, they've been completely reworked. Spono, if you want to go down outside into that yard in front of you there, we can show everyone some hipfire as well. Hipfire now has been completely reworked. It's harder to control. All guns now have recoil patterns. This is designed to give you the ability to master the weapon. And essentially, the more you play with a weapon, the better you will get with a weapon. The MG42 hipfire, we knew from the community, was ridiculously lethal, far more lethal than it really should be. Now, if Spono doesn't control the recoil, we can see what that looks like from the hipfire. So that's unbraced, and now if we brace the weapon, so there's a really, really high pull on it, and obviously players who master the hipfire will be able to keep it down, but it's in no way sort of a guaranteed kill beyond a certain point. Obviously, the MG42 is a beast of a weapon, but you can see that we've reworked this to give it more purpose when being deployed, and that deploying is far, far easier. The other thing you may notice is that we essentially rewrote the entire way that our sound system works on top of the animation as well. The sound system now, as you can hear, is not tied to the FPS that you're experiencing at the time. It's actually now unchained from that, and I believe put on CPU side. What this essentially means is that your the fire rate for every weapon that you're using is now completely independent of your first person, your frames per second. And as a result, you get that really crisp, clear, expected fire rate, which obviously best holds up here with the MG42. So if Spono just runs through here and quickly deploys it, if you jump through these ruins, Spono, oh yeah. So as you can see here, it's far, far easier to deploy the weapon now. You can get it down easier than not. And it really just makes it far more useful than what it has been previously. But again, as we said, useful in deploying. So now that we've seen the machine gun, what we might do is quickly take one look at the sniper rifle as well, because we think that this will be something that players will be very interested in. But what you'll also find is that really any weapon you pick up now has a distinct feel to it, both in the way that it recoils, in the actual amount of recoil it has, in the recoil pattern that it has. And there's really something to master here now. And we feel as a team really quite happy with sort of the way this is feeling, the satisfaction of it, the weight and the movement. And as Spono just sprints here. If you sprint for a little while, Spono, you'll be able to see that the character is really varying in very subtle ways. The actual sprint animation, the weapon moves around on the screen continually in new and randomized ways. You can see it shift as the character sort of shifts his weight. Obviously, as you corner the FPP corners as well. So what we'll do now is we'll take a look at the sniper rifles. So Spono's grabbed the sniper rifle now, and as you can see here, the sniper is looking very nice in the new hands in the FPP. However, what we think you'll want to see the most is the way that we've now treated the sniper rifle scope. So what we're trying to figure out here is if this is going to hold up visually as it does in the game within this video, because we were noticing some artifacting before. But here you go. We now have picture-in-picture for the scope. No longer is it just an overlay. As Spono leans to the left and the right using it, you'll notice that it actually shifts as you would expect, instead of just sort of remaining straight. But if Spono just wants to aim down there, take a couple of shots at those trees, you'll get a sense of sort of how it yeah, how it recoils, the feeling of it, as well as hearing the new Car 98 sound, which has had a fantastic overhaul. And then obviously firing and not ADSing will let you watch the travel of the round. And thanks so much for tuning in and having a look at this. We are incredibly excited to get you guys in the game, to get you playing and seeing sort of all of the changes and the improvements we've made. We're going to try and put together another video, kind of detailing the TPP stuff. The TPP is already looking really good and hugely better than what was in there previously. We still have a little bit more refinement to go that we'll be doing over the course of early access. And that's more sort of tweaking existing elements and things like that. Really incorporating smoother blends, and then also some fun idles and things like that. You know, soldiers pulling out a cigarette and lighting it up if you've been idle for quite a while. And there's a huge amount of fun things that we can do here. But yeah, we're going to try and get another video out amidst all of the sort of insane bug fixing and prep for the coming update that we've got planned. And what you can also see here is just the overhaul of all the lighting and of all the maps. And this is sort of the level of quality we would expect to bring all maps to in the future, both visually, the lighting, and everything like that. But we really now consider this animation to be exactly where we want it as a system. This has been more than just this has been more than just changing the animations out. This has been a complete rewriting of our entire system, alongside of all gun sounds and the way that we treat all weapon sounds. So we know how much you as a community have been requesting for us to work on this stuff, and we have known as well that there was so much more that we could do. And now we're really excited to show you what we would consider, you know, something near the best of what we're able to achieve. Obviously, Hell Let Loose is always a work in progress. If we find bugs or crashes or whatever, we will be quick to fix them, quick to work them out. But we really feel like the animation now and the gunplay experience, as well as the sound effects now, are coming some way to what we would expect to be the quality for when we leave early access. We're excited to show you so much more. I mean, there's so much more in this update. There's just all of what you would expect, more customization options. We've made a huge amount of tweaks to metagames for both modes. We've introduced more commander abilities. We've reworked the way that we communicate whether you've taken damage to the player. We've reworked the way that suppression looks. It's still effective to suppress people, obviously, but we've removed some of the visual ugliness from the way that we were blurring. There's just too much to even mention in this video. But we're hugely excited to get you in, and thanks for tuning in and watching this.
Should I go for the heat shot?
Go for it.
Oh!
Oh my gosh! popping skulls, holy moly.